Hello and welcome to a special edition, another one of Norwood Digest. We're with Helen Donohue, and this is going to be kind of a regular thing where we just talk about some of the history of the town. We're going to focus on the 1950s this time, and Helen brings a wealth of knowledge of the town history and really great anecdotal stories of some of the characters that were running the town or just around the town. And so as I say, we're going to concentrate on the 1950s. And since you were a selectman, Helen, let's start with the selectmen from the 50s.
All righty. So when you think of the selectmen in the town of Norwood in the 50s, a lot of them who served were people who were elected many years before. The most famous, Jack, and I'm sure you know this one, Harry Butters.
Oh, yeah.
And the selectmen's chambers are named after Harry. When he came to Norwood, he lived in South Norwood. He had a big family, including sisters and brothers and a lot of children. So he and his children lived on Dean Street at the corner of Dean and Pond. And he was busy trying to make, establishment in life and pay the bills and all that. So my aunt, my grandfather's sister who lived across the street, would always help out cooking with his wife so that all the children would be all set. But Harry he was the James Michael Curley of Norwood.
Okay.
And he was that way because I knew him my whole life. And he was always friendly and kind to people. When I was a senior in high school, Mrs. Riley told me I should be on the yearbook committee, so I had to sell ads, and I wasn't good at selling, and so I went down to the drugstore. Well, Harry started off with a cab, and then from there he went to the drugstore, and so I went down to the drugstore, and sure enough, he gave me an ad, no problem. And the day that the Selectmen's Chambers, I said, named after him, because he, in fact, is the longest-running selectman in the history of the town. Can you guess who the second one would be? If you look around the town and see what things are named after and so forth.
It's not Morrill.
No, I would say Dempsey.
Oh, yeah, duh.
Because of the common and the bandstand. But in fact, Billy Plasko categorized them all up. And Harry is the longest running selectman. And Walter Dempsey, he ran, he was a selectman and then he was off, then he went back on. So he gets to tie in as the second. And then Lopey Rich, and of all things, Billy Plasko.
I thought he would be up there.
Yep. And so I have some very interesting things to show you about, I'll show you the oldest first. Let's see. In the middle, right here, is Harry Butters.
Okay.
And this was he actually started, let's see. He was first elected in 1933.
Wow.
But here he is serving in the 60s, And then, so we have Harry here, and let's see, who else do we have? He would be the longest running. Then Walter Dempsey, and he was very colorful around town because he was smart. He had an insurance business. Right. He had a Rolls.
Still here, the insurance business.
It sure is. He had a Rolls Royce.
Oh, no kidding.
And he donated his time driving brides to.
Oh, that's nice.
Driving brides to church. Most of the rides went to St. Catherine's at the time.
I bet.
Because St. Timothy's didn't come till later, And then Lopey Rich, he was the next to the longest running selectman. And this is my dad right here. He was elected in 56.
Okay.
But he served throughout the 60s, and he was the first person not of Irish background or Yankee background to be elected in the town. Now, that's a big thing.
I know.
He had to run 5 times. I told you about that last time.
In what did you say, 56?
He got elected in 56. And Jim Drummie got
Oh, that's
elected.
Drummy. Oh, geez.
Jim Drummie got elected with my dad. And his family had been around Norwood. His father was a contractor. I think I told you that the last time.
Yeah.
And we have a room in the town hall also named for Jim Drummie. It's an office room. And so this is Jim Drummie, and his whole family has helped St. Catherine's Church so much. This is my dad. That's Walter Blasnick. And this is my dad. This is when they got sworn in together. Now, they both, Jim Drummie and my dad both served there in the 60s. Now, here is an interesting story that you may not know. Is it okay if I tell
Yeah,
it?
Sure.
So the word came down to the town that the archdiocese wanted to buy the land where St. Timothy's church is now, because it was a wonderful pond, but like after about 2 weeks, hundreds of people would come and the pond got polluted and there were fights and this and that. And so everybody, it had to be voted at town meeting to sell the land to the archdiocese. So it was on election day. It was a huge controversy, just like the big controversy that you and I talked about before about closing down the arena. Those were the two big controversies at the time. And so at the time, the only polling place to vote, this was before precinct voting, the voting was at the Civic. And where those glass doors are now at the top of the stairs, there were heavy wooden doors. And what you tried to do as a candidate was to open the door for the people so you could be there legally opening the door close to where the voting was, and get the last hello, this and that. So on the ground in front of the stairs, the people who didn't want to sell the land put a trailer, but on the trailer, they constructed a hangman's noose. Oof. And they built a dummy, and they hung the dummy on the noose. And they parked that in front of the Civic for the whole voting day. And, as a kid, that's a tough thing.
Yeah.
That's a very, very strong thing for the town of Norwood, And that just goes to show the huge controversy it was.
All right. Well, that's good. So now, because if we just stay on this, we'll never get through the other one. So
Okay.
let's jump.
Okay.
So who was the town manager?
Well, that's a wonderful subject. The town manager was Walter A. Blasnick. And the interesting thing about him was he had started working in the town clerk's office, and he got promoted from there. But his wife was Doris. She worked at Park Snows. Park Snows is, where
Yeah.
Park Snows is.
Well,
but
we had a Park Snow in Rosendale, where I grew up, too.
I remember. And that's where my cousins did all their Christmas shopping.
Yeah.
So anyway, Park Snow. So Walter Blasnick, the funny thing about him, he was part German. And so he found out that my grandmother grew dill in her garden. So he wanted to make dill bread. So he came down. He was a tall, heavy-set man. And he came down to the backyard, and he couldn't bend down and pick the dill. So we kids had to pick the dill. So then he made the German dill bread, and it was a jaw tease and try and chew it. But what you need to know about Walter Blasnick was the people that worked at the town hall, we had a little nickname for him, Wab, because his initials were W-A-B.
There you go.
And he had nieces and nephews. He had no kids of his own, but nieces and nephews, Jack, all over in the town departments. Arthur Grow, their name was Grow. They're one of the loveliest families in town. Arthur Grow was the detective sergeant on the police department. We had a Grow fireman, Grow public works department, Grow school department.
They're like the present-day McDonough's.
So all of his nieces and nephews, the whole town was filled with Grows, and they were all kind. And
That's funny.
It was really pretty wonderful. But in the town manager's office at the time, have you ever seen that movie, with Doris Day. I think it's called Picnic, and there's a switchboard on it, and there are plugs.
Yeah, yeah.
We had that.
Oh, yeah.
We had that. Were you here for that?
No.
So Brenda Babel was on that switchboard when she was 16 years old. So you
And is
pull out
that the Babel?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you pull out the plug, you push in the plug, you pull, and it was almost like number please
Yeah.
on the telephone. But Walter Blasnick had a crisis on his hands. For the first time, when Joe Wall and my sister were selectmen, that was the 60s, Joe Wall and Ollie and John Lydon got a frantic phone call from Walter Blasnick that the policemen were outside picketing the town hall.
Ooh.
It was the first time in the history of the town. And so he was looking for Jimmy Murphy, the police chief. Well, Jimmy and Arthur Groh were in Boston because Jimmy Murphy went to the FBI Academy. He was the first one to go from the police department, and he always wanted to be in the FBI down deep. So they always used to take rides into town. And so Jimmy Murphy and Arthur come back out to Norwood. Walter Blasnick's in the town hall. Ollie and Joe Wall are trying to support him. And Jimmy Murphy says, Mr. Blasnick says, "Oh, look at that. Oh, look at that. They're all picketing. They're picketing." And he was all in a tizzy. and Jimmy Murphy says, "Let's go have lunch." That was it, the lunch. I got to tell you one more Walter Blasnick story. One afternoon, one of the, I know who it was, but I don't want to say, but from the Public Works Department, somebody misconstrued an order, and they had to paint the lines on Dean Street. So the lines, it was supposed to be a solid line, because Dean Street between Washington Street and Pleasant Street is one lane, one lane. And so instead, they painted it a dotted line. In one afternoon, 3 accidents.
Oh, wow.
In a couple of hours, 3 accidents. But he was wonderful, Walter Blasnick.
Yeah. So we're in the 50s now. So how many? There was probably the Balch and the Callahan. Was that it?
Oh, no, we had the Winslow.
Okay.
And let's see, the Winslow, the Balch, the Callahan, and
Where's Winslow? Is that on Chapel Street?
Yep,
Okay.
95 Chapel Street. And I'm trying to think. That must have been it, Jack.
And where was the high? No, the high school was where it is. Well, not where it is now, but
Right, right. And the junior high was where the Guile Medical is.
Right.
And we had Friday night dances. And we had the most famous teacher at the junior high school was John Dixon, because he was famous. He was a famous athlete.
Right.
And he was wonderful. And so he told this kid who was, this kid was the sharpest student. And so Johnny Dixon told him, but the kid was a terrific athlete. So Johnny Dixon told him, he said to the kid, if you can climb up that rope upside down, you won't have to do gym for the rest of the year. Because the kid was a troublemaker. So the kid easily climbed up the rope backwards, and then he didn't have to have gym. Then another time, Johnny Dixon said to the kid, I want you to go, just to keep him busy so he wouldn't beat up the other kids. He said, I want you to go across the street. We had the Civic Center across the street. And he said, I want you to see if anyone is smoking over there. So the poor kid went over, and all of the girls were smoking. And he said all the smoke was coming out from underneath the roof. And so he said, I went back and I told him, no, nobody was smoking.
But you could see the smoke.
Johnny Dixon knew they were smoking too, but it gave him time off.
So, all right, so I forgot about the Winslow, to be honest with you. And then...
Could I please tell you one thing?
Sure.
The one famous teacher at the Winslow School was a woman named Miss Cuff. And her brother worked at the Norwood Press. And so Miss Cuff went to St. Catherine's every week, sat in the same spot. When the whole church was filled with her funeral, because she was a teacher and very well respected, up above her pew in St. Catherine's Church, the front on the right, the electric light thing smoked.
Wow. Wow. See, I believe that stuff is real,
Well, it happened,
Yeah.
and everybody, one woman fainted because of it.
Sure. Wow. All right, so we talked about a couple of the teachers. Who was superintendent then?
Oh, well, it was, let's see, before Dr. Coakley, so it must have been Mr. Lynch.
Okay.
And his son became a superintendent. His grandson became different towns, but they had it in them. And he would say, eschew vulgarity to the seniors. Eschew. I didn't even know what eschew meant. I guess it means keep away from.
Oh, okay. I see what he's doing.
Yeah,
Okay.
and he's in vulgarity. I knew it.
Yeah. So I know two of his grandsons.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, from your job.
Yeah.
Aren't they educators?
Absolutely. One was in Walpole for a while as the super,
That's right.
and I want to say the other one was in like Middleborough or something like that.
And
Nice guys too.
were any of them in Hingham? No, I could be wrong.
Well, when I met them, that's where they were. They
Had
move
been
around.
Yeah. But how about those people for educators?
know.
And just here, eschew vulgarity. I remembered it.
So now, when were the? Because they're the same. Prescott and Cleveland built. Was that in the 50s or the 60s?
Well, the Willits,
Well, it was
the
the 60s.
Cleveland was the first, right, out of the new
Yeah,
schools.
I think it was 58.
The Willett,
No, the Cleveland.
the Cleveland rather, yeah, and the Willett was the last.
Right.
The Oldham School. My father was on the building committee, and he brought out Congressman Jim Burke.
Oh, I remember that name.
Do you remember?
Yeah, he was before Moakley or before Hicks.
But he was out of Quincy,
Yeah.
but he was a big.
Yeah.
And so he came to the Balch School dedication when the addition was put on the Balch School too. That was the 60s. But Jim Burke, my father said to me, say hello, take care of the congressman. I was a kid. That
Yeah.
meant I had to drive him around. But the principal of the school at the Oldham at the time, I think his name was Mr. Barry. And he recorded that whole procedure. And Congressman Burke, that's the only recording we have of my father, and Congressman Burke put both the addition of the building of the Oldham School and the addition on the Balch School in the United States Congressional Record.
Oh, nice.
He put them in, so if you go to Congress, you can look it up.
Yeah. What other? If you remember, any other big construction projects around that time?
Well, in the 50s, it was when we were getting ready to change over the use of the car arena
Yeah.
to the industrial park. So that finally came to be with all of the zoning and all of that. That was in the late 60s.
Okay.
Yeah, that was in the late 60s, early 70s. But around Norwood, Jack, you could feel the change. We were growing.
Yeah.
Like we had, I think, 14,000 people at the time, and we were growing. And I remember people talking a lot about trying to perk up the uptown area as far as the sidewalks and the streets and the street lights. And, but the churches were so active.
Yes.
Just in South Norwood alone. We had the Lithuanian church, we had the Polish church, and we had the Syrian church. We were the League of Nations, and we all supported each other. If someone needed a bigger space, the meeting went in the other church. If someone needed this or that, if someone ran a used clothes thing or whatever it was, everybody took care of each other.
So in the 50s, was the fire station where the Colonial is now, or it had already moved?
It had, the police station used to be downstairs in the building behind, it was the old jail.
Yeah.
But the office was downstairs where the building department is now. Then it went to the old jail. And then when I was in the 60s, I was a senior in high school and the class president and this and that. And so the fire station was vacant at the time. So I went to the Board of Selectmen, and I was so naive. and unknowing, I asked them if we could use the second floor for a teenage drop-in center.
Oh, what a great idea, though.
Didn't get passed. That went down the tubes.
And that was before we owned the Civic, right?
Oh, we owned the Civic when Eddie King became the governor.
Yeah, okay, so that was in the, like, 70...
No, it was 83.
Was it really?
82,
Wow.
maybe. He was the governor before that. But
Okay.
you know how we got the Civic? Because I can tell you that. Because he went to Boston College with John Keneally.
Okay.
And I was Eddie King's campaign manager in Norwood. And I was working full-time on his campaign. And so he gave us the Civic because of Keneally.
And it,
I
think it cost us $1, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
I have a wonderful, I should have talked to you about this earlier. This picture is,
I recognize a few people in that picture.
tell me who you know.
Ollie.
Yep.
Is that George next to her?
You mean here?
No, this way. Who's
This
that?
John Carroll.
Oh, that's John Carroll.
That's her.
Wow, that's too funny.
And this is Mary Fox. She was
Oh,
the
I remember
second
her.
select. You do?
Yeah.
Do you know who this is? Do you remember him?
That's not...
Frank Swift. The
Yeah, I
park,
remember the name, but I don't remember him.
the park across the street from the Civic is named after him. He was a selectman in the 60s, and he owned the Norwood Laundry.
Okay.
And he was married to Clem Riley's sister. Do you recognize this guy?
No.
Clem Riley.
Okay.
And I have something really
Yeah,
interesting
I saw
here.
that earlier.
He was the registrar of motor vehicles. And he was really, if you knew Clem, he was married to a Riley,
So this
Clem
is when he
Riley's
ran for
sister.
governor's council.
In 1938. That's when he did. I tried to enlarge it, but I used to have a nice enlarger, but now all that computer stuff I get confused on. But that's when and if you want to read some of the interesting things about him, that's pretty interesting.
And he was a selectman for a
Yeah.
long time, huh?
Not that long.
Okay.
No, he wasn't that long. And but he was the registrar of motor vehicles. So everybody in Norwood knew Clem Riley. You know, in front of the high school here, there's a circle on one side.
Yes.
That ranch house, that was his
Oh, no
house.
kidding, okay.
Yeah. So everyone would see if he was home or not. it was pretty.
So
and
when I go ahead, finish.
this is John Keneally.
Yeah, I remember John.
FBI.
Yeah, I remember
Norwood Selectman. He was wonderful. Billy Plasko. Wow. Imagine how young he was. And he's the one that tipped me off. We were talking about this today. I thought that this was in the 68. And he said it had to be 78. It's the Norwood Selectmen's Association. It was a breakfast at
Okay.
Bickford's.
Bickford's,
And so if Billy Plasko was there, it had to be 78. And this is Jim Drummy.
Yeah.
Look at how young he
Yeah.
was there. John Lydon.
Oh, geez.
And John Lydon was on the board with Ollie. He was on the airport. He and Ollie were on the airport commission with Monsignor Senate.
Oh, wow.
And John, what I truly believe, was one of the original Colonial Boys, founder of the
That's
Colonial
right.
Boys.
I think I knew that.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh.
Because I interviewed the Colonial Boys a couple times, and I remember
So
he was there. And what was the gentleman's name? Grover?
Jimmy Grover.
Grover, yeah.
He's still there now.
Yeah, yeah.
And Jimmy Grover, oh boy, he's such a hard worker. John, you know what they used to call John Lydon?
What?
Johnny Fife. Yeah.
Nice.
And Johnny Fife, and Bob Johnley was there. You know who this is? Harry Butters' son,
Okay.
Billy.
I remember when Billy was there.
And so you will remember this because he had been a one-term state rep.
Right.
And his nickname was Billy Butterball. and being a one-term state rep, during the vacation, during the re-election campaign, in the year that he was running, the big crime was he took his family on vacation. And, you know, all the politicians, 2-week vacation on the Cape before the campaign. Everybody was scared. And so, sure enough, he came back, he ran the election, he lost. And David Hearn beat
Yeah,
him.
I remember David Hearn.
And you were with David Hearn's team.
No, I wasn't here then.
Well, that's the team that you
Yeah,
joined when you got here.
Correct.
They were all your big friends, remember?
Yeah,
I
David,
remember
Frank.
that. Yeah, Frank Morrow
Yeah.
and Gina Hearn and so many of them, you know. And
And who's the last guy?
this is Charlie Donohue.
Oh, I remember that guy. I remember the name.
And he had been on the Board of Selectmen, and I think he had even been the chair, and then he went to the World War II. And so his son, Charlie, lives in Westwood now, but he's one of the greatest helps we've had. He's created a program at the library that gives classes from all the finest universities on the computer, and he adds to it every year. He has been, you know, when you see the pictures of the skaters on the Common,
Right.
he hires Tom Dunley, and the one that he did for the Pops, and he sells the prints of the picture. He has an agreement with Tom Dunley, the artist. He sells the prints, and he gives every single dime that they make to this school
Nice.
for scholarships. He's been doing that. And so all the Pops, so note papers, prints, this and that. So
Yeah, those guys, I know a lot of those people, but they look so young I didn't recognize. Because I moved here in '87.
that's a long time ago.
Yeah,
I would say you've been here long enough to say, you know.
But it just hit me. I think Bill Plasko's been a selectman since I was here.
Right. But he was town moderator.
Right.
And, you know, he is the most knowledgeable individual
Yeah.
in town. He really is very, very knowledgeable.
I always used to say to him, I might not agree with you, but I know you did your homework.
He always does, Jack. He
Yeah.
always does, you know. He really did.
So I don't know if you know the answer to this, but are you is your family the only family that had 3 select?
Yes. 2, even 2. Who else had 2?
Well,
I don't
didn't
think.
Butters, wasn't his?
Oh, yeah, father and son, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, so 3. And both of us, like my sister, the first female.
Right.
You know? But the big thing, too, it's the opening up of the nationalities. That's the big thing.
Yeah.
Because Norwood definitely was an Irish town.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we have all the neighborhoods, right? And then they threw in Sweetville just to throw it.
Oh, no, we had, up on Wilson Street, we had the Workman's Hall in Blasnik. That was another thing, part German, you know, so that was a big thing.
Yeah.
And then up there also, we had the Finnish Hall. I forget, the Runeberg Hall.
Oh, I remember.
It was the
never was
Finns.
in there, but I remember that. And then the Italian
Bought
was
it
up there.
afterwards, and then the Italians gave it up. So when the Italians gave it up, they wanted to raise money, so they sold off some stuff. So if I have a cookout, I take out the folding chairs, and some of them say Runeberg Hall. I hope they don't think I stole them. I paid for them, you know. And then they had all kinds of knives and forks and spoons. So I paid for those too. But I mean, you know, they can't tell that.
Yeah. Well, this was fascinating. I think we went through everything you had, right?
I think so.
Yeah. All right. Well, then next time we'll try to we'll do the 60s. And
Okay.
We'll see what, I know we mixed a little in, but
Oh, but it's funny how they interrelate with each other.
yeah.
They interrelate with each other. But, you know, we're at the point in our lives now that things seem to be going faster.
Yes. Yeah, that's for sure. In my personal life, my youngest is getting married in May. And
Oh, wonderful.
it seemed like it was a year and a half ago they got engaged, and it seemed like forever. Now it's, less than 100 days
Where are they getting married?
in Spain.
What part of Spain?
About an hour north of Barcelona.
Wow.
It's right on the venue is right on the Mediterranean. Yeah, Costa Brava.
Costa del Sol.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's the place is beautiful. We were over there in October to check it out.
Torremolinos. Yeah, Torremolinos is on the coast there.
Okay.
Yeah. So what takes people to Spain?
She wanted a destination wedding somewhere, and she studied abroad in Italy, but her fiance studied abroad in Spain. Spain was much more practical, and so I'm excited. I had never been to Spain before, so I'm very excited about it.
They say that Barcelona is the most continental city in the world.
Well, it's an interesting thing because we're a little off topic, and that's my fault. They had the '92 Olympics in Barcelona, and so they had to build the Olympic Village. But the other thing that they did, their downtown waterfront was like over in Southie where all the container ships came in.
Oh,
And so what they did was they moved all that stuff down the coast a bit,
wow.
built a beach. So Barcelona has this beautiful beach, and all of the things around it were built for that. So they're not that old. But then go in 3 blocks, and then you've got like the Church of the Holy Family, which is still under construction some 200 years after it started.
Wow.
And it's just, the place is gorgeous. It's a great place.
Wow.
So.
That's really wonderful.
Yeah.
Around now, would probably in the old days go to Onset.
Yeah. Wareham. My grandmother had a house in Wareham.
Really?
Yeah. All right, we're going to wrap this one up. Thank you so much, Helen. This is
Happy to be
This is
here.
so much fun.
It is for me. Thank you so much.
All
Love
right.
the town, you know.
Yeah, I know you do, and
Yeah.
it's why we're doing this. So that's going to wrap this up. We need, if anyone watches this and can think of a good name for this show, we're all ears. She shot down the ones I had. I love alliteration, so if you can give me something with alliteration. But anyway,
The only reason I shot him down was because we need to make it bright.
So thank you again, Helen. Thanks to the great crew here at NCM, and thank you at home for allowing us into your living rooms. Good day, and keep safe.